Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Burlington Matters. I am Burlington Mayor Marianne Mead Ward, and I'm delighted that you have chosen to join us. We have another awesome show planned for you today and outstanding panelists, as we always do. People in our own community talking about what matters to them, what's on their mind, and we know what matters to you too. So let's get right to it. We have Nick Hotchkiss, who's a grade 12 student at the Halton Catholic District School Board. So Nick, give a wave. I know we'll be talking about what's been going on there. Matthew Conroy is here, Programming Youth Coordinator for the Positive Space Network, and Fee Tron Trin, who's QT BIPOC consultant for the Positive Space Network. And I hope I pronounced that correctly, Fee. Okay, good. And you're going to tell us what that means in due course. And as you may have guessed, our topic is about inclusivity and about how we make sure that everyone in our community, particularly our 2S LGBTQIA plus community, can be made to feel more welcome, and what's happening in the community in terms of supports for members of our community who so identify. And I will also just put a little plug in. City Council just yesterday at Council voted to install more rainbow crosswalks. We are also making sure that they are the progressive crosswalk that include the black and brown colors and the trans colors. So that was approved, but it was close, and we can talk about this. It was a 4-3 vote. So I'm so grateful to my fellow colleagues who supported my motion. It was Councillor Galbraith, Councillor Nissan, and Councillor Bentivegna for their unwavering support for this. But you know, when it comes to decisions around how to spend money, sometimes inclusivity doesn't make the cut, and we've got to change that. So it went through. We got it done. It was great. We're flying the flag. We just got a progressive flag here at the City of Burlington. So I'm wearing my Fly the Flag t-shirt, which I know Nick will talk to us about the history and the origin of this t-shirt, which is also a fundraiser. But I'm just really thrilled to be having this dialogue with the three of you. I know that I will learn something from it, and I hope all of you residents out there also learn something from our conversation. So I'm going to start with Nick, and what I would like to talk to you about, walk us through the motion that you brought to the Halton Catholic District School Board trustees about flying the pride flag, and just give us a little bit of history and what motivated you to do that. Go ahead, Nick.
So it originally started as a social justice project for my social justice course in my very first quadrimester of school. We had to pick a subject that interested us and then try and make an actionable plan to try and target the issue. So going to a Catholic school, I chose the relationship between the 2S LGBTQ plus community and Catholicism. And I did a survey within my school and got a few statistics back. And based off of that, I found that we lacked visibility. And the easiest way to fix visibility is to get a visible symbol of support, which was flying the pride flag. We didn't have to take our action plan to reality, but I really wanted to. So I took the time over a few months to sort of gather friends' opinions and create my presentation. And then I ended up presenting on April 6th.
So you picked like a light topic to do your project on.
Very unproblematic for a Catholic board.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible that was your topic. But it's actually really, I didn't realize the connection between this being a social studies project, and what better way to realize the reality of what that project means than to actually turn it into action. So that's absolutely incredible. So now, for anyone who may not have heard what happened, why don't you walk us through how that went for you at the board?
So it didn't end up being decided on at my specific meeting. The next meeting on April 20th, trustees Agnew and Guzzo presented a motion to try and fly the flag. Several trustees postponed the decision and voted to not vote on it that night. So the director of the board called a special meeting on the 26th where they had to vote on it to avoid it being delayed any further. And that was when the vote happened, and they ended up turning it down. There were endless amendments. The meeting went on for a really, really long time with people trying to make constant edits and take out the flag, say no flag at all, say only one poster per school. The final decision was no flag, one safe space poster, and training for staff. But obviously, considering my emotion was called Fly the Flag, most people were not satisfied with the answer.
And was that a close vote, or was that obviously there were some supporters? I know trustee Brenda Agnew, and I forget the other trustee that you mentioned, who were obviously in support of this. What was the final vote?
I believe it was 5-2. I think it was just them voting in support of their final motion, because the other amendments that people tried to make didn't end up supporting it. And then the final motion, I believe, got an overwhelming majority of support, which was the amendment where no flag was added and the amount of safety posters was reduced.
All right. So talk to us about why it's important for you, and then I'll come to the other two of our guests. I just know our residents will be very interested in hearing this firsthand. What did that feel like? And then it led to this Fly the Flag movement as well. Go ahead.
So I wasn't shocked, but obviously I was disappointed. I did know that a lot of the trustees, specifically on our board, have some more traditional values that they try to uphold with their base. So I wasn't expecting a yes, if I'm being completely honest, but in a way, I'm glad they said no, because it forced them to make a decision and reveal where their values lied. And that then snowballed, and it took on a life of its own, completely out of my hands. And now there are several other boards, I think 7 now, that have voted to fly the flags at their schools within Ontario. So at least there's progress elsewhere, and we're starting to see that more aggressive, positive push towards change. It definitely sort of not got taken out of my hands, but there was a lot of community support where other organizations, like the organization that made the t-shirt you're wearing, I had nothing to do with that. I had nothing to do with hashtag Fly the Flag. I had nothing to do with the petition that was created by Trustee Kirsten Kelly. They helped me a lot with this and got that snowballing. That got Dan Levy's attention, Eugene Levy's attention. We got an Olympian's attention. It really, really amplified and snowballed to a point much further than I could have ever expected it going. So I'm glad that our board's decision and refusal to support queer students at least started a larger conversation and more progressive change for other school boards in Ontario.
You started a movement. You lit a spark and you started a movement. And I actually hope you got an A on your social studies project, because that, whether people agreed or disagreed with what you were trying to do, the fact of the matter is that is social change in action right there. And you were a part of that. You took an assignment for your classroom and turned it into a real life movement that other people came alongside. And that is the very definition of social change, right? We don't do any of this by ourselves, but to put your voice forward, to be able to have the courage actually to put something forward that you thought was going to fail, but to do it nevertheless. That is an incredible lesson, no matter what issue we're talking about, and no matter what movement we're talking about, to be able to do that. So I'm thrilled that you're here. You have sparked a conversation across the city, and I can tell you that prompted me to bring forward the motion that I did on the rainbow crosswalks in the month of June, which of course is Pride Month, because we have installed one in the city, Burlington and Lakeshore Avenue, and there was always a plan to look at additional ones, and it just kind of fell off people's radar because of COVID. So when I saw this all happening, I reached out to our transportation staff and said, where are we with those more crosswalks coming? And they said, well, everything's just kind of been put on hold for COVID. So you lit a fire in me too. There you go. And we have more crosswalks and you to thank for that. So thank you for that. I do want to ask both you, Fee and Matthew, and then I've got some specific questions, but I think it's a really important conversation to have for the community, especially those who may be doubting the importance of visible signs of inclusivity. I'll come to you, Fee, first. Why does it matter to put a rainbow crosswalk, or why does it matter to fly a flag? Why are these symbols important? I hear, as you may, well, it's just paint, it's just fabric. Why are we spending money on this? What's your response to that?
I'm going to bounce off of Nick. I have a really similar response. I think symbols are just so important to many folks in our community. It can be a difference of feeling welcome or unwelcome. So I think that visible representation can make a lot of difference for people.
That's great. And Matthew?
Yeah, I think that these symbols are really the first step into making sure that our spaces for youth, especially, are feeling safe, inclusive, and give a sense of belonging to them. Because without anything there, it can send a message that doesn't reflect that.
So important for folks to hear that. Thank you for that. So I want to turn now to the Positive Space Network and talk a little bit about what the network is, how long it's been around, and what the catchment area is. It Burlington, Halton. Maybe I'll come to you first, Fee. Go ahead.
So the Positive Space Network has been around for many iterations over its time. So Marcus Logan initially started it several years ago, and it's taken on many forms, many different names, until it was called the Positive Space Network and housed at ROC, the Reach Out Center for Kids. And so it does cover all of Halton. So that includes Burlington, Oakville, Milton, Halton Hills. And so all of our programs try to reach out to any folks in the 2S LGBTQ plus community.
That's awesome. And Matthew, talk to us a little bit about the youth component of the Positive Space Network.
Yeah. So in terms of our support, so we host ongoing programs for 2S LGBTQ plus youth in Halton, primarily between the ages of 12 to 24. These programs have been a lot of fun, not just for me, but for the youth as well, because it's an opportunity to connect with one another, access resources, play games, and just get creative. We've had a lot of arts-based programs going on over the last couple of months, thanks to ROC and PSN's relationships with organizations like the Art Gallery of Burlington, Oakville Galleries, and the Milton Public Library as well. And then we also have an ongoing gender-affirming gear campaign that youth who don't have access to materials or resources to increase their sense of gender euphoria can request through us, and we can provide that. And then, of course, we also have our local mental health support through ROC's walk-in clinic and the groups that are facilitated by our clinician.
So talk to me a little bit about, you use the word gender euphoria and that program. Talk to, I've not encountered that term before, and maybe some of our viewers haven't either. What is that all about?
Yeah, I think it's important to preface before I kind of explain it that as someone who is cisgender and does not identify as trans, I can't necessarily speak to exact experiences, but I can speak to the experiences that our youth share with us. So gender euphoria to them is feeling finally that they are feeling like they're in the right body, for a lack of better words. So, things like chest binders, we're able to provide those, tank tops, things like that. So just even things like clothing that can help increase their sense of identity and belonging within themselves and within the community. And a lot of those resources and materials are honestly very expensive. And so that is one of the things that we're really happy that we can support, because it takes away a lot of the cost that these youth really can't afford.
Good that you're there. I do want to talk a little bit, and maybe I'll come back to you, Fee, and then I want to come to you as well, Nick, about your experience of being in the Catholic board or any school, really. But what are you hearing from people in our community at the Positive Space Network around, whether it's inclusive for them, whether they feel welcome? What are people telling you, and what they need from the community, what they need from the city? What do you hear?
So what we hear from folks in our community is kind of like this ongoing relationship of them needing some better supports and resources in the school. So things like having teachers being more informed around things like homophobia and transphobia and calling it out and mentioning it so that the students can feel safer in that space. Another thing some of the youth in our community are telling us is the need or desire for gender neutral washrooms. Some of our youth in these systems don't feel safe enough to use these services or facilities in their schools, and that's the basic human right that's being denied. So students are kind of coming to us and telling us that there are a lot of things they'd like to see for change in order to better feel supported.
That's great. And I'll put a little plug in for the city of Burlington. We did add in our city hall, as well as now any redevelopment, gender neutral washrooms. So single stall that have a symbol that means it's for everybody. That's how we've referred to them. And we did that in the last term of council. So that was something that we worked on with our inclusivity advisory committee and our accessibility advisory committee, and hearing directly from our residents that was important. So it's good to hear, and that it matters. It's meaningful to people in our community, but also the flip side is needing to do more of that. Nick, I want to come to you again about what your experience has been in school, dealing with your fellow, students or teachers. How has that been?
In terms of like homophobia and transphobia, you definitely, as with any high school, you're going to hear slurs in the hallways. I've never experienced any like direct harassment in my classrooms. I've been very lucky. Most of my teachers have been very, very supportive and accepting. I do think there is a need for education, like they were talking about, among teachers, because not everybody knows everything they need to know, which is why my vice principal, Amanda Morrow, along with me and students from a bunch of other high schools, created a Pride Month calendar in which we created resources to educate staff and students during the month of June. So we're starting to make a bit of that change to educate teachers and students, because I don't think a lot of it is intentionally being rude. Most of the things that my friends and other queer people in the school experience is microaggressions that people don't know are harmful. So we were hoping that with that sort of education to it, we can progress our schools to being more safe spaces for these queer students in the HCDSB.
So give me an example of what a microaggression can be, because I think it's an important way to educate folks who are watching here now that, as you say, may be completely unintended or unintentional. They're not aware of the impact of this type of behavior. What are we talking about there?
So the more like deliberate ones that are like actual like jokes made at the expense of people, I've heard like the I identify as an attack helicopter joke before in classrooms to make fun of like people like myself who don't identify with their gender they were assigned at birth. I've heard that a few times. The teacher I had at the time called it out because it was one of those safer classrooms I did feel welcome in. You definitely do hear a lot of the times with older teachers, more specifically, whenever things are referenced, it's like brothers and sisters or ladies and gentlemen. It's just one of those small things that gender non-conforming individuals may not feel like they're included in those types of greetings, which is why it's important to try using like folks or people or students to try and be more inclusive of everybody in your classroom, because you don't always know somebody's identity.
Oh, that's a great tip. And it's something so small, right? It doesn't cost anybody anything other than just to be educated about it and to be aware. I want to come back to you, Matthew, and really the same kind of question. So what, obviously without revealing confidences, what kind of things do you hear from people that you talk to, and what advice would you give to people watching about how to be more inclusive and welcoming, and to avoid maybe inadvertently causing causing pain to somebody because you don't know the impact of your words.
Yeah, I think from the experiences that have been shared with me, as well as my own experiences growing up as a queer student in schools, it really is the big first step is education, in my opinion. And I think that stems from a lot of conversations that I've had with folks that just come from a place of not knowing. When you call out or call in that behavior and make it a learning moment for them, then the typical response that I've gotten has been like, oh, really? I didn't know that. And so it can be a good opportunity for learning, but we also want to make sure that the community itself is not doing all of the teaching. It's up to the community to do that work and put in that effort and listen to the folks around them about what they need rather than making the assumptions of what they should be doing.
That's a really good point. And it is something certainly I know others in the community are committed to learning. So I know you mentioned earlier, Positive Space Network is part of the Reach Out Center for Kids, and there's resources available there. So if somebody like myself or someone else wanted to educate themselves more about the barriers that people in our community face who have a different identity, are there resources online? Can you recommend where we would go to find some of that to educate ourselves?
Yeah. So out in the community, we're able to collaborate with different community programs or organizations and provide opportunities for trainings or workshops, providing resources or support at an organizational level. We've also been working with students within the region to provide support and resources for their clubs or GSAs or their teachers. And then on our team, we also have an amazing resource coordinator, Serena, who puts a lot of hard work and dedication into making resources accessible for not only just folks who identify as 2S LGBTQ+, but also parents, caregivers, community members as well. And then the last thing that I'll kind of plug here is also that we offer support programs or support groups for parents and caregivers of 2S LGBTQ+ youth. So then that provides an opportunity for them to ask questions, share their experiences navigating what it's like for them as a parent in a space that's really judgment-free. And it's been a really great learning opportunity for I think not only the parents and the caregivers that come out, but also for myself as well.
Yeah, that's really important to reach families and parents for a whole range of reasons. I want to come to you, Fee, and ask if you have any additional thoughts to contribute to what we're talking about in terms of supports and resources, and even from your own experience or what you're hearing, what you'd like to see change.
Just having conversations like this, I think, is so essential to not be afraid to have these conversations. And I think it can be broken down on many different levels for our community, whether it's politically in the community or on a personal level. So for example, on a political level, folks can continue to advocate for funding directed towards 2S LGBTQ+ services, because then this can be put towards things like those gender neutral washrooms, and be used to better support the critically adept responses for our complex needs in the community. On a community level, folks can get involved for change by just paying attention to the systems around them and asking themselves questions. So it could be things like, do you see the gender neutral washrooms? Do you see the pride flag raised? What's classroom culture like? Are teachers properly equipped and trained to deal with the homophobia and transphobia that's brought up? So making sure that the teachers are receiving support to do these things as well. I know that EGAL did a report earlier this year that stated 64% of folks who participated who went to school did receive homophobic and transphobic comments daily. So this is a large number, and it creates a really big barrier for folks to live authentically. And so last but not least, on a personal level, I think that folks can continue to read and learn about 2S LGBTQ plus identities, to listen to the voices in the community, and to have those conversations that both celebrate us and center our voices for change.
We had one of our residents come forward and ask to do a public art project in partnership with the city. So this past weekend, she was down at Spencer Smith Park with a crew of people installing flags and signs. And the signage was actually raising awareness. And I didn't know this, but it was just such a powerful message that there are 1,664 people within the Catholic Board who identify as 2S LGBTQIA+, right? Huge number. These are the people that were so affected by that decision of the trustees. And so they put 1,664 little flags out and asked people to take a flag, commit to inclusivity, take a picture, spread the pride message, and they were all gone by the end of the day. I was down and I took my flag too. But that, was a really interesting way. We've been talking a lot about education and awareness. It was a really interesting way for me. I learned something to learn about, how invisible some people feel when you're in a system like that, and to be able to call it out and to say we're here and see us and welcome us, and to see the community of Burlington embrace that. We hear the other voices from time to time, but I know the vast majority of our community stand with you. They support you. They're so happy to see the work, and they're part of you. We have many wonderful, diverse people in our community. Thank you so much, Fee. Thank you so much, Matthew and Nick, from the Positive Space Network and from the Halton Catholic District School Board. I'm so honored that you have joined me today for this conversation. And thank you to all of you watching and listening out there. This is another episode of Burlington Matters, and signing off, I'm Mayor Mary Ann Mead Ward.